The knife slipped from Jordan's hand, clattering against the granite countertop like a gunshot in the sterile quiet of his Chicago apartment. Blood blooming instant and vivid across his palm as the news alert buzzed on his phone. George Harlan weds childhood sweetheart in backyard ceremony. Family bliss amid summer storm. His twin brother Mason's face grinned back from the screen, arms slung possessively around the man Jordan had loved for 7 years. The man who'd whispered, "I can't do this anymore," just months after Jordan's tearful coming out to the world. Jordan's vision blurred. Not from the sting of the cut, but from the acid twist in his gut, betrayal sharp as the blade, carving deeper than any confession ever could. He stumbled to the window, rain lashing the glass like accusations. And there it was, the family group chat exploding with heart emojis and congratulations. His mother's "so proud of you boys," oblivious to the bomb she'd just lit. Jordan Harper had always known he was different, even before the word gay stuck to him like gum on a hot sidewalk. Growing up in the shadow of Wrigley Field, where the Cubs' cheers echoed like distant thunder through their modest brick row house in Wrigleyville, he and Mason were two halves of the same Midwestern miracle. Identical twins, born minutes apart under a harvest moon in '98, with the same tousled chestnut hair, the same hazel eyes that crinkled at the corners when they laughed, the same lopsided grin that could charm a nun out of her habit. Their mom, Ellie, a no-nonsense nurse with calloused hands and a voice like warm cornbread, called them her double trouble, the boys who turned her gray hair silver by age 35. But Jordan felt the fracture early. While Mason chased skirts at Lincoln Park High, captaining the baseball team with effortless swagger, Jordan buried himself in sketchbooks, drawing the curve of a boy's jawline in secret, the forbidden thrill of it twisting his insides like a stolen Marlboro. George Harlan crashed into their lives senior year, a transfer from the South Side with a faded tattoo of a wolf on his forearm and eyes like smoked whiskey. Dark, intoxicating, dangerous. He was the new kid who didn't give a damn about cliques, slinging fastballs in gym class and quoting Springsteen lyrics like scripture. Mason befriended him first, the two of them bonding over stolen beers behind the bleachers. But it was Jordan who George noticed. The quiet twin sketching in the corner, not the loud one cracking jokes. One humid August night, after a Cubs win that had the whole neighborhood lit up like fireworks, George cornered Jordan in the alley behind Sloppy's Ribs. "You draw like you see right through people," he'd said, voice low and gravelly, close enough that Jordan could smell the hops on his breath. Their first kiss was messy, urgent, teeth clashing, hands fumbling under hoodies, the world narrowing to the heat between them. It was the start of everything. Stolen weekends in George's beat-up Chevy, driving out to Lake Michigan to watch the sun bleed into the water, whispering dreams of escaping Chicago for something bigger, brighter. George wanted to be a tattoo artist in L.A. Jordan, a graphic novelist. Mason knew nothing at first, or so Jordan thought. His brother, ever the protector, had caught them once, frozen in the garage like deer in headlights, but he just clapped Jordan on the back later and said, "Your secret's safe, man." Love's love. 7 years blurred by in a haze of young adulthood grit. They graduated, scraped through community college, Mason in business, Jordan in fine arts, and crashed together in a shoebox apartment off Addison, the three of them a makeshift family. George inked sleeves at a dive shop in Wicker Park. Mason climbed the ladder at a logistics firm downtown. Jordan freelanced logos for craft breweries, his sketches hiding the ache of a love he couldn't shout from the rooftops. Their mom fussed over Sunday pot roasts. Dad, long gone to a heart attack when they were teens, haunting the edges like a ghost in faded White Sox tees. It was perfect, or close enough. Lazy mornings tangled in sheets. George tracing Jordan's spine with calloused fingers, promising forever in the afterglow. But forever cracked on a crisp October evening in 2024, Jordan's 26th birthday. He'd planned it simple, dinner at the Wiener Circle, those greasy char dogs slathered in everything. Then back home for a six-pack and George's famous, terrible karaoke rendition of Wonderwall. Mason was out of town for work, a rare solo night that felt like a gift. Jordan had been rehearsing the words all week, the ones that stuck in his throat like fishbones. I'm gay, George. And I love you. Coming out to Mom had been a tearful hug fest the month before. To Mason, a bro slap and about damn time you stopped hiding. But George, the man who'd held him through panic attacks and bad gigs, Jordan needed him to say it back, to choose them over the closet. The words tumbled out over flickering candles on their thrift store table, Jordan's hands shaking as he pushed away his half-eaten dog. George's face went still, fork midway to his mouth, the room thickening like fog off the lake. Jordan, he started, voice cracking like thin ice. Minutes stretched into hours, George pacing the linoleum, muttering about his Baptist folks back home, the job he'd lose if word got out, the complications. I love you too, man. God, more than anything. But this, out loud, it'd wreck everything. Wreck us, Jordan thought, but didn't say. Instead, he nodded, throat burning, and they fell into bed anyway, desperate and silent, bodies saying what words wouldn't. But the fracture widened. George pulled away, late nights at the shop, bro nights with Mason that stretched till dawn. Jordan drowned in sketches of fractured hearts, the city lights mocking him through rain-streaked windows. By January, it was over. A quiet breakup in a coffee shop on Clark Street, George sliding a key across the table with eyes averted. I need space to figure this out. For both of us. Jordan walked home in the snow, the wind whipping like judgment, wondering if love ever survived the Midwest chill. Months dragged, a numb routine of freelance gigs and bar crawls with strangers who tasted like regret. Mason stepped up, dragging Jordan to Bulls games, force-feeding him deep dish at Lou Malnati's, his twin intuition a lifeline. He's an idiot, Jord. You'll find someone who doesn't make you hide. Jordan nodded, faking smiles, but the whole George left gaped like a missing tooth. He threw himself into therapy, pride marches, a half-hearted grinder fling that fizzled after one awkward hookup. Life edged forward, until the wedding invite arrived in April, crisp cardstock in his mailbox like a sucker punch. Mason and George request the honor of your presence. Jordan's knees buckled right there on the stoop, neighbors' dogs barking in the distance. His twin, his other half, marrying the man who'd shattered him? The photo enclosed showed them beaming on a beach in Door County, arms around each other, George's wolf tattoo peeking from a rolled sleeve. It didn't make sense. Mason was straight as an arrow, or so Jordan had believed, girls parading through their lives since puberty. George, the complications he'd cited, suddenly resolved with Jordan's own blood? He confronted Mason that night over beers at their old haunt. The exit, the jukebox crooning Johnny Cash like a dirge. What the fuck, man? Jordan slammed his pint down, foam sloshing. Mason's face crumpled, hazel eyes mirror to Jordan's, drowning in guilt. It just happened. After you two split, we started hanging more. Talking. One night, beers turned to more. Turns out, He's bi. And me? I don't know what I am anymore. Mason's voice broke, hand reaching across the scarred wood table. I love him, Jord. For real. But I never meant to. Steal my heart. Jordan spat, standing so fast the chair scraped like nails on chalkboard. Or just bury it? He stormed out into the spring drizzle, the city a blur of neon and hurt, vowing never to set foot in that backyard ceremony. But family pulled like gravity, Ellie's pleas, the twins' unbreakable bond. He went anyway, tux rented and starched, heart armored in silence. The rain started as vows were exchanged, sky opening like divine wrath. Jordan lingered at the garden's edge, wildflowers nodding in the gale, watching George slip a band on Mason's finger, the same finger that had once traced Jordan's tattoos in the dark. Lightning forked, illuminating the lie his ex, his brother, bound in a knot he couldn't untie. And in that electric flash, Jordan realized the real storm wasn't the weather. It was the chaos ripping through their blood, threatening to drown them all. The reception tent sagged under the downpour, white canvas billowing like a ship's sail in a squall, fairy lights flickering erratic as fireflies on their last legs. Jordan hovered at the perimeter, nursing a flat beer from a plastic cup, the foam long gone bitter as his thoughts. Laughter bubbled from inside, cousins toasting with cheap champagne, Uncle Ray belting out an off-key Sweet Caroline on a karaoke mic scavenged from God knows where. But Jordan couldn't cross the threshold. Not yet. His mom spotted him first, weaving through the crowd in her lavender sheath, pearls askew, face a map of worry lines deepened by the humidity. Baby, she murmured, pulling him into a hug that smelled of Chanel No. 5 and rain-damp wool. You look like hell. Come in, eat something. It's your brother's day. Our day. Jordan wanted to scream. Twins shared birthdays, Easters, heartbreaks, but this was Mason's theft, George's erasure. Ellie cupped his face, thumbs brushing rain from his cheeks. I know it hurts, but family's family. You two, you're halves of my heart. Don't let this break you. He nodded, throat too tight for words, and let her tug him inside. The air was thick with barbecue smoke and Motown soul from a Bluetooth speaker, plates piled high with ribs sticky with stubs and coleslaw sharp with vinegar. Jordan loaded a paper plate to appease her, perching on a folding chair near the dessert table where a lopsided sheet cake sagged under buttercream roses. Mason found him there, tux jacket slung over one shoulder, tie loosened like a noose undone. Close. The resemblance was eerie. Same jaw, same freckles dusting the bridge of the nose, but Mason's eyes held a softness George had never mustered, a plea that twisted the knife deeper. Jord, Mason started, voice barely audible over the din. He sank onto the grass beside the chair, knees bumping Jordan's. I didn't plan this. Swear to God. After you and G broke up, he was wrecked. Came to me one night, drunk off his ass, crying about how he fucked up the best thing in his life. We talked for hours about you, about us growing up, about how I always felt like the shadow twin, chasing your light. Mason's laugh was hollow, fingers raking through wet hair. Then he kissed me. Or I kissed him. Doesn't matter. It felt right. Like puzzle pieces I didn't know were missing. Jordan's grip whitened on his fork, coleslaw congealing untouched. Right? While I was picking up my pieces. You knew how I felt about him, Mace. 7 years. and you just slid in. The words tasted like ash, laced with the old ache of being the sensitive twin. The one mom dressed in pastels while Mason got the baseball mitts. Always second, always watching his mirror image claim the spotlight. Mason flinched, but didn't look away. I tried to fight it. Dated that girl from accounting, Sarah? The one with the laugh like a hyena. But every time I closed my eyes, it was George. And he said the same about me. We're not you, Jord. We're not brave like you, coming out to the world while we hid. He reached for Jordan's hand, but Jordan jerked back, the plastic cup crumpling in his fist. Beer splashed across Mason's cuff, dark as spilled secrets. Brave, Jordan hissed, voice rising enough that a nearby ant shot them a curious glance. This isn't bravery. It's betrayal wrapped in a bow tie. You two deserve each other. Liars playing house while I bleed out. He stood, plate tipping into the mud, and stormed toward the tent flap, rain greeting him like an old friend. George intercepted him halfway, materializing from the shadows like a ghost in Armani. Water beaded on his shaved head, the wolf tattoo stark against the white shirt clinging translucent to his chest. Jordan, wait. His voice was the same rumble that had once soothed Jordan to sleep, now a thunderclap of regret. They faced off under a drooping oak, branches clawing the sky, the party's muffled cheer a cruel soundtrack. What do you want, George? Congratulations? Jordan's laugh was jagged, arms crossed tight to hold himself together. Or just to see if I still break pretty for you? George's jaw clenched, rain tracing the scar above his brow, a bar fight souvenir from their wilder days. It wasn't like that. After we ended, I spiraled. Thought I could go straight, date women like my folks wanted, bury it all. But Mason, he saw me. Really saw me, without the bullshit. He's steady, Jord. The kind of steady I never gave you. His eyes searched Jordan's face, hungry for absolution. I still think about you. Every damn day. That night you told me, I panicked because I knew I'd lose you if I couldn't match your courage. Jordan's chest heaved, the storm mirroring the one inside, thunder rolling low, lightning etching veins in the clouds. You did lose me. And now you've got my brother? That's not steady, George. That's poetic fucking justice. He shoved past, shoulder clipping George's, the contact electric, a spark of old fire that nearly buckled his knees. But he kept walking, into the deluge, toward the L train rattling in the distance. Back in his apartment, the cut on his palm throbbed anew, a scarlet reminder as he bandaged it under the harsh kitchen fluorescence. His phone lit up. Text from Mom? Come home tomorrow? Mason, we need to talk. George, please. He silenced them all, collapsing onto the couch with a sketchpad, pencil flying furious across the page. Twins entwined with thorns, a lover's shadow splitting them apart. Sleep came fitful, dreams of drowning in Lake Michigan, George's hand pulling him under while Mason waved from shore. Dawn broke gray and unrelenting, coffee bitter as he scrolled the wedding pics flooding Facebook, candid shots of cake smashing, first dances under string lights. One caught him, George and Mason forehead to forehead, eyes closed in bliss, oblivious to the camera. Jordan's finger hovered over like, then deleted the app instead. He needed air. Escape called out sick from his remote gig, laced up Nikes, and hit the lakeshore path. Runners pounded by, oblivious to his turmoil, the wind off the water whipping his hoodie like a flag of surrender. That's when the real unraveling began. A call from Ellie, voice trembling. "Jordan? Honey, your grandma's asking questions. Saw the photos. Thinks it's some kind of joke. And your aunt. She's whispering about family curses, saying this is God's punishment for. You know, the word gay hung unspoken, a specter from her Baptist youth." Jordan's steps faltered, waves crashing like accusations. Grandma Ruth, with her Bible verses and lemon bars, had barely acknowledged his coming out. "A stiff hug and we'll pray for you." Now this, the wedding as divine smackdown? By noon, the family group chat devolved into a battlefield. Uncle Ray's boys, blood's thicker than romance. Sort this shit out. Cousin Lila's passive-aggressive hurt people family first. And Mason's desperate I love you both. Let's not lose what we have. Jordan typed fuck this noise, hit send, then blocked the thread. But isolation clawed deeper than anger. He craved the old ease. The three of them piled on the couch watching the bear, razzying each other over burnt popcorn. Desperation won. That evening, he showed at Mom's, the row house glowing warm against the twilight chill. Ellie enveloped him in flour-dusted arms, midway through her famous apple crisp, while Mason and George sat awkward at the kitchen table, nursing mugs of Folgers. The air hummed tense, sense of cinnamon and regret mingling. "Sit," Ellie commanded, sliding a plate his way. Jordan obeyed, fork piercing crust like armor. Talk tiptoed around the elephant. Weather, the cub's slump, Grandma's hip surgery. Then Mason cracked, voice raw, "Jord, we're getting heat." Work side eyeing me for the distraction. George's folks cut him off, called it unnatural. But we can't hide. "Not like you did for so long." George's nod was solemn, hand covering Mason's, a gesture that stabbed Jordan fresh. "And me," Jordan's voice emerged small, cracked. "I'm the punchline? The gay twin who paved the way so you could waltz in." Tears pricked, hot and unwelcome. Ellie reached across, squeezing his knee. "No one's punching anyone, baby. This family's a mess, but it's our mess. Love doesn't divide, it multiplies, if we let it." George leaned forward, eyes earnest. "I hurt you worst. Deserve your hate. But Mason, he's my anchor now. Doesn't erase us. Jord. What we had, it was real. Taught me to fight for this." He gestured between himself and Mason, the ring glinting like a truce flag. Jordan searched their faces, mirror and memory, and saw not thieves, but men adrift, same as him. The crisp burned his tongue, sweet bitter truth settling. "I don't hate you," he whispered finally. "But it fucking hurts. Give me time." He stood, plate half empty, and Ellie walked him to the door, slipping a Tupperware of leftovers into his hands. "Twins forever," she murmured. "Even when it storms." Outside, stars pierced the clearing sky, a fragile peace. Jordan walked home slow, the wound in his palm itching toward heal, wondering if chaos could birth something new, forged, not fractured. Summer sweltered in Chicago like a fever dream, humidity clinging to skin like unspoken sins, the city pulsing with jazz fests and fireworks that lit the night in fleeting glory. Jordan threw himself into work, churning out pitch decks for a queer-owned distillery in Pilsen, labels of rainbow-hued bottles etched with motifs of reclaimed thorns. Paid the rent, barely, but the rhythm dulled the edges. Mornings at the gym pounding the treadmill till his lungs burned. Evenings at Pride bars in Andersonville. Flirting with baristas who texted back once and ghosted twice. Mason and George's honeymoon glow faded into radio silence. Respectful space. Mason texted once. Miss you, bro. Doors open. Jordan left it unread, stacking bricks of resentment higher. But family has a way of breaching walls. Grandma Ruth's hip surgery landed her in Northwestern Memorial, a sterile maze of beeps and bleach, and Ellie's SOS yanked Jordan across town. She wants the boys. Both. He arrived to find Mason already there, slumped in a vinyl chair, George's hand on his shoulder like a talisman. The room smelled of wilted lilies and regret, Ruth's frail form dwarfed by 4 stands, her silver hair a halo on the pillow. Jordan, my lamb, she rasped, eyes milky but sharp as she spotted him. Come closer. Heard about the wedding. Foolishness. Her hand, veined and trembling, clutched his. Mason shifted, guilt etching lines around his mouth. George hung back, a shadow in scrubs borrowed from a nurse friend, visiting, not family, not yet. Ruth's gaze flicked between them, twins like bookends. Always knew you two were special. Your mama's pride, your daddy's echo, she coughed, wet and ragged, then fixed on Jordan. Heard you. Found your truth. Brave boy. Braver than these two. Playing house like it's 95 and don't ask, don't tell. A wheeze of laughter escaped, surprising them all. Mason's jaw dropped, George's eyes widened. Jordan's heart stuttered, Ruth, the verse quoter, the one who'd slipped him Love the Sinner pamphlets post coming out. Grandma, Jordan started, but she waved him off. Fierce. God don't make mistakes. And love is the hardest grace. Your grandpa, God rest, hid his poker nights, but I knew. We all hide something. Her eyes softened on Mason and George. This one's taking care of you? A nod to George, who stepped forward, voice steady. Yes, ma'am. With everything I've got. Ruth's grip tightened on Jordan's hand. Then forgive him, lamb. Life's too short for grudges. Saw it in the war, boys loving boys in foxholes. No time for shame. The room stilled, her confession a grenade in the quiet. Mason's face crumpled, tears tracking silent. George swallowed hard, thumb rubbing circles on Mason's neck. Jordan's walls trembled, Ruth's words a chisel to the mortar. They stayed till visiting hours ended, Ellie herding them to the cafeteria for vending machine coffee that tasted like regret. In the fluorescent hum, Mason pulled Jordan aside, voice thick. She cornered me last week. Said if I hurt you, she'd haunt me from the grave. A watery grin. Guess blood tells. Jordan punched his arm. Light but real, the first crack in the ice. You're still an asshole. But the words lacked venom, warmth seeping in. George hovered, tentative. Thanks for coming. Means everything. Jordan met his eyes, the old pull there but tempered, like embers banked. For her, he said simply. And drove home with Ruth's grace echoing, the magnificent mile blurring past in neon absolution. The thaw accelerated unevenly. A Cubs game invite from Mason, nosebleeds at Wrigley, hot dogs and heckling the umps. Jordan went, beer in hand, cheering as Seiya Suzuki cracked a homer, the crack of the bat a catharsis. George was there. Of course third will turn fourth. But the banter flowed easy, razzing over strikeouts, George's laugh booming over the crowd roar. No deep dives, just the rhythm of old times, fractured but mending. Then came the bomb. George's folks, the Harlans from rural Indiana, cornfields and church suppers, descended unannounced, Bibles in tow, faces carved from granite. They cornered Mason at his office downtown. An ambush in the lobby. Turn from this abomination, son. He's leading you to hell. Mason called Jordan in a panic, voice shaking over speakerphone from a coffee cart across the street. They're quoting Leviticus. Jord. Like I'm possessed. Jordan raced over, heart hammering, finding Mason pale against the loop's steel canyons, George flanking him like a shield. The Harlans turned as one misses. Harlan's pearls clutched like rosaries, Mr. S' mustache twitching fury. You, she spat at Jordan, recognition dawning from old photos. The influence. Sodom's whisper. The sidewalk thickened with commuters, but Jordan stood firm, voice steady as Lake Superior. Lady, I'm just the brother who loves his twin. George is the one who chose him, heart, not hellfire. George stepped up, arm around Mason's waist. Mom, Dad, this is us. Bi, gay, whatever. We're family now. Accept it or walk, Mr. Harlan's face purpled, but Mrs. faltered, eyes flicking to their clasped hands, echo of her own wedding band. Perhaps. You're throwing away salvation, she whispered, but the venom ebbed. They left sputtering threats of disownment, tail lights vanishing into traffic. Mason sagged against George, Jordan pulling them both into a huddle, the three of them a knot against the wind. That was badass, Mason murmured, clapping Jordan's back. My hero. George's gaze held gratitude, a bridge rebuilding. Couldn't have done it without you. Pride Month hit like a revelation. The city awash in rainbows, parades snaking Halstead, floats blaring Gaga, bodies painted electric. Jordan marched with a local artists collective, sign reading twins for Love Aloft, Mason and George joining midway, rainbow pins glinting on their tees. The crowd surged. Chance of love wins a heartbeat, and for the first time, Jordan felt whole, not halved, not hidden. They collapsed post-march at a street fair, rainbow slushies melting sticky, sharing falafel and stories. George's first crush on a farmhand, Mason's fumbling college experiments, Jordan's sketchbook secrets. But undercurrents stirred. Late one night, post a gallery opening in River North, Jordan's Thorn series debuting to murmurs of acclaim, George texted, "Can we talk? Alone." Jordan's pulse spiked, old ghosts rising. They met at a dive on Division, jukebox crooning Tom Waits, the bar top scarred as their history. George nursed a whiskey neat, ice clinking like confessions. Seeing you shine tonight kills me. What I did, pushing you away after you came out, cowardice. Pure, his eyes, whiskey dark, locked on Jordan's. Mason knows I'm here. Told him straight up, I need closure. For all of us. Jordan's beer went flat, heart a drum solo. Closure? Or complication? The air crackled, charged as pre-storm static. George leaned in, voice gravel. Miss the way you saw me, raw, uninked. But I'm Mason's now. This, a gesture between them. It's echo, not encore. He slid a small package across, a leather-bound sketchbook, Jordan's from their early days. Pages filled with their doodles, wolves howling at twin moons. Found it cleaning. Yours. Keep drawing our story without the hurt. Tears pricked. But Jordan took it. Fingers brushing George's. Final spark. Then ash. Thanks, he whispered. For owning it. They parted with a hug. Brief but bone deep. The door swinging shut on what was. Fall crept in golden. Leaves carpeting the parks like confetti from a mended parade. Jordan dated. A barista named Theo with a lip ring and laugh like summer thunder. Tentative. Real. Mason and George hosted a twins' birthday bash at the old apartment. Now there's pot roast and bad karaoke a full circle. Jordan arrived with Theo in tow. The room erupting in cheers. Ellie beaming like she'd birthed miracles twice. As cake smeared faces and Wonderwall butchered the air, Jordan caught Mason's eye across the chaos. Hazel mirroring Hazel. Whole at last. The knife scar on his palm had faded to silver. A reminder. Wounds heal crooked, but they heal. And in the heart of the heartland, amid the roar of a city that never sleeps, love, messy, mirrored, multiplied, endured. Winter clamped down hard that year. Lake Michigan freezing into a jagged mirror under iron skies. The wind off the water howling like banshees through the canyons of the loop. Jordan's life found a fragile equilibrium. Theo became steady. Their dates a mosaic of indie flicks at the music box and walks along the fossil-strewn limestone of Montrose Point. Hands brushing tentative then sure. Theo was a potter. Hands perpetually dusted in clay. His queer Puerto Rican roots weaving stories of Santurce street art and abuelas pastelillos that made Jordan's mouth water. You're healing slow, Theo observed one night, tracing the faded scar on Jordan's palm over candlelight in his Logan Square studio, the air scented with sage and kiln smoke. But you're glowing through the cracks. Kintsugi shit, Jordan laughed, pulling him close, the warmth a balm against the season's bite. But equilibrium, like thin ice, cracked under pressure. The Harlan's dissonant lingered like frostbite. George's shop lost clients to whispers, forcing him to moonlight as a bar back at a Boys Town dive. Mason's promotion evaporated in a cloud of HR memos, personal matters affecting team dynamics, leaving him pounding pavement for freelance consulting, resentment simmering. And Ruth, her recovery stalled, pneumonia sinking claws deep, landing her back in the ICU amid beeps and hushed consultations. The family vigil became a pressure cooker. Ellie aged a decade in weeks, her cornbread voice fraying to whispers as she alternated shifts, forcing pot roasts on whoever showed. Jordan and Mason tag-teamed nights, twins in the waiting room like sentinels. George's presence a quiet constant, fetching coffees, holding hands through glass partitions. One blizzard-lashed evening, as snow piled drifts against the hospital windows, Ruth rallied enough for a family huddle. Tubes snaked her arms, but her eyes burned fierce. Gather round, my wild ones, she croaked, Ellie adjusting pillows with trembling hands. The room crowded, Jordan and Mason shoulder to shoulder, George at Mason's elbow, Theo awkwardly present with a thermos of Abuelita's hot chocolate. Ruth's gaze swept them, landing heavy on George. Boy, you got ink like my Tommy. Fought in Nam. Hid his letters from sweethearts that weren't so sweet. A knowing wink. Then to Mason, you, my shadow chaser always running Jordan's race. Time to run your own. Mason nodded, throat bobbing. To Jordan, and you, Lightbringer. Don't dim for no one's dark. She paused, breath ragged. clutching Ellie's hand. Family ain't blood alone. It's the ones who stay in the storm. Harlan's cut you loose? Fine. We're your harbor. George's face crumpled, a sob escaping as he buried it in Mason's neck. Jordan's chest ached, Theo's arm a steady anchor around his waist. Ruth's words hung, a benediction, till monitors wailed, code blue, nurses swarming. They cleared the room, huddling in the hall as chaos reigned. Ellie's prayers murmured Catholic Protestant hybrid, Mason pacing furrows in the linoleum, Jordan sketching frantic hearts on a napkin to ward off the void. She slipped away at 3 a.m., snow muffling the world's grief. The call came soft, Ellie's voice breaking. She's gone, boys. Peaceful. Jordan drove through the whiteout, Theo navigating via phone, arriving to find Mason shattered on the porch steps, George cradling him like fragile glass. They buried Ruth under a January thaw, the cemetery in Evanston blanketed in crusty white, her plot beside Grandpa's marked by a simple stone. Ruth Harper, lover of truths. Eulogies flowed. Ellie's tearful, she saw us all. Mason's choked my North Star. Jordan's sketched portrait passed hand to hand. Thorns blooming roses. George spoke last. Voice gravel over frost. She gave me grace I didn't earn. Taught me families chosen, not chained. The funeral luncheon at the row house turned wake. Neighbors with casseroles. Cousins with whiskey flasks. Stories of Ruth's lemon bars and sharp tongue weaving a tapestry. But under the chatter, fissures widened. Mason pulled Jordan into the garage, childhood haunt of bikes and secrets, face drawn. Works tanking. Jord. Clients ghosting after the wedding pics leaked. And George's folks sent a letter. Pray for your soul's return. Like we're lepers. Jordan's gut twisted. Echoes of his own post-coming out isolation. Gigs drying up till he pivoted to queer niches. Fight it. Like I did. Build your own table. But Mason's eyes darkened. A shadow Jordan hadn't seen since Dad's funeral. What if I can't? What if this, us, costs everything? George overheard. Stepping from the shadows. Oil-stained rag from tinkering with the old Ford in hand. Then we rebuild. Together. But his voice wavered. The wolf tattoo flexing with tension. That night, as snow resumed, Jordan overheard the fracture. Raised voices from the guest room. Mason's, we rushed this. Maybe we should have waited. George's, you think I don't wake up scared? But I choose you. Every day. Doors slammed. Silence thick as fog. Spring green tentative. Buds pushing through concrete cracks like hope's stubborn fingers. Jordan's series sold, Thorns to galleries in Milwaukee. Funding a down payment on a studio space in Ukrainian village. Theo's pots glazing beside his easels. But Mason spiraled, interviews bombing. Bar tabs climbing. Nights crashing at Jordan's couch. George exiled to the shop's backroom cot. He's pulling away, Mason confessed one dawn. Nursing black coffee. Stubble shadowing his jaw. Says I'm ashamed. That I'm punishing him for loving me like I punished you. Jordan's heart clenched, mirrors multiplying pain. Talk to him, dumbass. Like adults, not teens. He dragged Mason to the shop that afternoon. Bells jingling over the buzz of needles. Air thick with ink and antiseptic. George looked haggard. Sleeves rolled. A half-finished phoenix on a client's calf. The confrontation erupted in the back alley. Dumpsters reeking of yesterday's regrets. Mason's, I need space to breathe. George's space? That's code for quitting. Jordan mediating like a referee in a blood feud. Stop. Jordan roared, rare thunder in his voice. You're tearing yourselves like I tore me. George, you bailed once. Don't make Mason pay. Mason, love's not a race you win by hiding. And me? I'm done being the cautionary twin. They stilled, breaths fogging the chill air. George deflated first, slumping against brick. I'm terrified. Lost my folks, my edge. But losing him? Worse. Mason crossed the gap, hands framing George's face, echo of wedding vows. Then fight with me. Not against. They reconciled messy. Couples counseling in a Lincoln Square walk-up. Sessions peeling layers like onions. George's internalized shame from Baptist brimstone. Mason's fear of eclipsing Jordan's light. Jordan attended once. At their plea, Theo waiting outside with takeout foe. The therapist, a wiry dyke named Carla with tattoos of her own. Nailed it. Twins amplify. Betrayal hits double. But so does forgiveness. Jordan nodded, scars itching his own path from rage to release. Summer bloomed vengeful, heat waves warping the skyline. Theo proposed a road trip, Route 66 Redux. Chicago to Santa Monica, chasing Americana ghosts. Jordan invited Mason and George, testing waters. They piled into Theo's battered Subaru, 4 men, duffels and dreams, playlists shuffling Springsteen to Bad Bunny. Stops blurred, Route 66 diners with pie a la mode, Cadillac Ranch spray-painted neon, Grand Canyon rims where sunsets bled purple. Tensions simmered then sparked. A motel blowout in Tucumcari over Mason's lingering silences. George accusing you're still ashamed. Mason retorting of us? Or of stealing your brother's heart? Jordan mediated under star-pricked skies. Fire crackling in a pit scavenged from the office. Truth time, he said, passing a flask of Theo's distillery rye. Mason, you didn't steal. George chose you after me. George, you didn't betray. You broke because you couldn't bend. Theo chimed, voice soft. And Jordan, you didn't lose. You led. Words hung, embers glowing. Mason cracked first, tears hissing on coals. I envied you, Jord. Your courage. Thought marrying George proved I had it too. George pulled him close. You do. We all do. Hugs circled. The desert vast witness. Bonds reforged in firelight. Back in Chicago, autumn gilded the elms. Harvest moons rising fat. Ruth's estate settled. A modest bequest split twins' ways. Ellie's house paid off. Jordan proposed to Theo on the lakeshore. Ring a clay-wrought band etched with thorns turned vines. Yes sealed with salt-lipped kiss. Mason stood best man. George groomsman. The ceremony small. Backyard under harvest moon. Wildflowers nodding like Ruth's ghost. But chaos, that old friend, wasn't done. George's shop burned. Arson whispered. Anti-gay slurs spray-painted on the charred wall. A Harlan cousin fingered in shadows. The family rallied. GoFundMe surging with queer community fury. Jordan's art auction raising seed. Mason's networks hustling loans. George rebuilt fiercer. Phoenix mural on the facade. Ink and unbroken etched above the door. Through it, Jordan saw. Betrayal's scar tissue toughens. Love's the graft that grows. Holidays healed. Thanksgiving at Ellie's. Tables groaning under turkey and tamales. Toasts to Ruth's grace. New Year's. They 4 watched fireworks from the roof. Theo's head on Jordan's shoulder. Mason and George's hands entwined. Resolutions unspoken. Endure. evolve, embrace. Yet under joy, embers smoldered. A letter arrived spring 26, George's mom. Post-therapy breakthrough. Tentative olive branch. Saw your fire on the news. Proud. Despite myself. Coffee? George wavered. Mason supportive. Jordan neutral. Your call. Blood bends. Doesn't always break. The meet unfolded at a neutral Starbucks in Oak Park. Awkward sips. Stilted talk of weather and grandkids unborn. Mrs. Harlan's eyes softened on George's ink-stained hands. You look happy. That's enough. No full thaw, but a crack graces slow seep. Jordan's graphic novel launched that summer, Thorn Twins, a semi-auto tale of mirrors and mending, forward by Theo's poetry. Signings packed. Reviews raving raw Americana heart. Mason started a consultancy for queer startups. George mentored apprentices from the margins. Ellie dated, a widower from her ward, gentle as her laugh. By fall, Jordan stood at his window, sketching the skyline, towers thrusting defiant, lake a silver promise. Theo snored soft beside, ring glinting. A text buzzed. Mason, tailgate Sunday, Cubs versus Cards. Bring the rye. Jordan grinned. Typing wouldn't miss it. Thief. Sent with love. The chaos tamed. Not ended, but woven into the warp. The years unspooled like thread from a well-worn spool. Chicago's seasons cycling relentless. Blizzards yielding to cherry blossoms. Heat mirages to pumpkin spice fog. Jordan and Theo's wedding lingered in memory's glow. A harvest moon affair in the backyard. Wildflowers rampant. Ellie's pot roast steaming beside tamales. Ruth's stone etched afresh with grace grows. Vows exchanged under that moon. Theo's you're my canvas. Cracks and all. Jordan's you fired my kiln. Steady. Wild. Mason teared up mid-ceremony. George clapping his back with a wink. Your turn next. Bro. The reception devolved into joyous chaos. Uncle Ray two-stepping with cousins. Fairy lights tangling like love's knots. The L train rumbling benediction. Life layered on. Jordan's novel sequels birthed graphic tours. Panels at C2E2 where fans clutched Thorn Twins like talismans. Whispering it saved me. Theo's gallery shows sold out. Clay vessels cradling light like captured sunsets. They adopted a rescue mutt named Sage. Part lab. All loyalty who claimed the couch's throne. Tail-thumping welcomes. Mason and George's commitment ceremony followed 2 springs later. A lakeside affair at Montrose Beach. Waves lapping vows. Mason's you steadied my storm. George's inked our forever. Jordan officiated. Voice steady. From betrayal's blade to this bond. Love's the scar that shines. Ellie thrived. Her nurse's scrubs swapped for volunteer shifts at a Pilsen clinic. Dating Frank, the widower. Blossoming into road trips to Galena wineries. Her laugh fuller. The Harlans thawed piecemeal. Mrs. Attending the commitment shyly. Pearls polished. A tentative beautiful over cake. Mr. Mailing a check for the shop rebuild. Note clipped. Proud of your grit. No full embrace. But bridges built plank by plank. No longer burned. Challenges came. As they do. Theo's kiln fire scorching a show week's work. Jordan's freelance drought amid AI art upheavals. Forcing a pivot to teaching at Columbia College. Mason's consultancy boomed, then busted in a recession crunch. George weathering client droughts with side hustles tattooing at fests. Family huddles in the row house kitchen. Now Frank's domain with his chili recipe. became ritual, venting over cornbread, plotting comebacks like generals in a gentle war. The real tempest brewed quiet. Mason's diagnosis. Fall 28, a routine checkup veering to prostate. Early but aggressive. The word cancer landed like a rogue wave, sucking air from the room. Ellie's face ashen as she clutched rosary beads. Jordan felt the twin pull visceral, pain echoing in his bones, like sharing a bruise. George rallied fierce. Research binders stacked. Specialists at Rush consulted. Support groups joined in Boys Town basements. Theo cooked bone broths laced with turmeric. Jordan sketched affirmations, phoenixes rising from cellular ash. Treatments blurred. Chemo suite sterile as space. Mason's hair shedding like autumn leaves. His grin defiant under bandanas. Perks of being the handsome twin, he'd quip. Jordan retorting always were. George never left his side, holding basins through nausea, inking tiny wolves on Mason's knuckles for luck. Family rotated. Ellie's bedside hymns, Frank's bad jokes, Jordan's readings from Thorn Twins, chapters of Mending Aloud. Remission came fragile. Spring 29, scans clear, but shadows long. Mason emerged leaner, wiser, proposing a bucket list, Route 66 Redux, this time with chemo scars as badges. They drove, 4+ Sage in a rented RV. Theo navigating, stops at diners for pie therapy, Grand Canyon campfires where Mason confessed, thought I'd die regretting the steal. But you, Jord, you gave me grace first. Made this possible. Jordan teared, arm around his twin. We shared the heart. Split the cost. George nodded, firelit, and doubled the win. Back home, Mason channeled it, mentoring queer cancer survivors. His consultancy reborn as a nonprofit. Unbroken bonds. George's shop expanded. A community hub with free ink sessions for at-risk youth. By 30, the twins turned 32 under a blood moon. Party at the row house sprawling to the block. Barbecue pits smoking. Neighbors mingling with chosen kin. Toasts clinked. Ellie's to Ruth's grace. Theo's to cracks that catch light. Frank's to chili that doesn't kill. Jordan watched Mason and George dance slow under string lights. Bodies synced. Scars invisible, Theo's hand warm in his. The X, a chapter closed. But foundational. Betrayal's forge. Tempering steel. Grandkids entered stage left. Ellie's first via Frank's daughter. A towhead terror named Luna who toddled between twins. Demanding Unca Jord draw wolf. Jordan complied. Pages filling with family lore. Thorns to vines. Mirrors to mosaics. Sage puppied a littermate. Chaos quadrupled. Holidays layered. Hanukkah lax from Theo's TIAs. Christmas tamales. Easter egg hunts where Luna unearthed treasures of plastic dinosaurs. Jordan's final novel closed the arc. Mirrored grace. Epilogue, a wedding under harvest moon. Thorns eternal. Launch at Unabashed Books drew crowds. Mason emceeing. My brother's words? They mended us. Post-reading. Beers at the exit. George toasting. To the ex who became family. A decade on. 38 twins 40. Gray threading temples like silver wisdom. Chicago evolved. Wrigley renovated. Pride a metropolis-wide revel. Jordan taught. Theo's studio a Pilsen landmark. Mason's nonprofit national. George inked senator spouses. Wolf a symbol of resilience. Ellie and Frank wintered in Florida, but summers anchored home. One eve, Lakeshore Walk, Jordan and Mason. Theo and George trailing with Sage's grandpup. Waves lapped. Moon harvest huge. Remember the wedding storm? Mason mused, arms slung brotherly. Jordan nodded. Chaos birthed this. Laughter mingled with surf. City lights winking complicit. Life's no fairy tale. Losses peppered. Frank's quiet passing. Theo's arthritis slowing hands. But grace multiplied. A chosen daughter for Jordan and Theo. Clay-fingered artist named River. Mason and George's surrogacy son. Wolf named Kai. Family sprawled blood. Ink. Adoption. A tapestry thorn-stitched. Jordan sketched it all. Final page a mirror. For faces. Whole. Betrayal's echo faded to harmony. Love's anthem loud. In America's heart, amid concrete and corn, they endured, not unbroken, but beautifully bent. Human, after all.